Welcome to Celestial Small Talk with Alice
and CJ. Celestial Small Talk refers to the big ideas, profound revelations, and deep connections that are created in the briefest of encounters. It is often in these moments that an imperceptible shift in thought can bring about the biggest change, helping us to more fully embody our intuition. We strive to inspire, illuminate, question, provoke, and spark the unique constellation within.
Welcome to Celestial Small Talk with CJ and Alice, who are together in CJ's apartment. We had a bonus in-person visit and decided to just record together. So how are you doing today, Alice?
I'm doing pretty okay. I'm hanging in there. I had a rough morning with just waking up with this overwhelming weight on my chest. And I think it's just a ton of nights of lack of sleep and waking up to a lot of responsibilities sort of getting to me. But I started the day with some oracle reading. I try to take my time with things that I have to do. I got to talk to my partner earlier, got to hash out some of the things, so I feel a lot lighter right now. I also got to enjoy a very delicious meal cooked by CJ. So I'm very nurtured, very well taken care of at this very moment, and I'm excited to dive into today's topic. What about you? How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. I currently have a little dog who is trying to be right in the middle of this podcast. So if you hear him, that is what the noise is. He has actually been causing me a little stress over the last couple of days because I don't think we're communicating very well, and we're working on it. You know, being a dog owner is similar to being a parent in certain ways, and I'm still learning how to parent a 3.5-year-old dog. So we are hanging in there and ready to dive into today's topic. But before we started, I have lit a courage candle, which I think is pretty apt for what we're going to be talking about today. So if you are listening, I invite you to take a deep breath and release it. And just think about finding internal courage. Let me harness my fears in a positive way to create strength in difficult situations. Give me a warrior's confidence to do what is right, not what is easy. My dog is literally in the middle of this recording session, so yep, here he is. Alice, you are so excited to talk to us today. We're returning to one of our character analyses, and you picked someone good today.
Yes, over the weekend for my birthday celebration, I went to see Black Widow, and CJ also saw the movie. I just had so much to say about her. She's one of the first female superhero that I got to know and to love and to admire and to idolize and, when I was younger. And this movie was sort of an origin story, a story about what happened to her before the Avengers, what's behind all of her strength and struggles and just tendencies and everything like that. And it was a very fascinating movie to see. What did you think about the movie?
I thought it was very well done, but really hard to stomach. So for those of you who haven't seen it, there are going to be spoilers in this conversation, so just take care of yourselves. But all the thing about a white guy being in charge of all of these women who he basically viewed as dispensable and, did non-consented to hysterectomies on, and just the whole idea of considering girls around the world dispensable, I had a really hard time stomaching that. Mm-hmm. That said, the commentary, I think, on the role of women and men was pretty poignant, and I think that the strength that was shown by the female protagonist was just amazing, and it was really great to see women in such kick-ass roles. It's just hard that it feels like all of that comes from a place of trauma, And yet, we do know that when people have undergone trauma and have processed it, they tend to come out on the other side as these, badass women. So there is some truth there, but it would be nice to just have someone who wants to do the right thing just because they want to, not because they were violated by some man.
Yes, absolutely. It definitely was a story about violation and taking away people's choices. And, these ladies didn't have control over their actions because they were manipulated by these men, and forgetting who they are, forgetting that they have their own choices, and forgetting that they are their own person and they have dreams and desires, and they have worth in their own existence. They don't exist just for someone else's use. I really hope that at one point, though, because these narratives have been played around quite a bit, and I hope that at one point someone would address the middle, because you see the origin story of the heroine. She came from a really rough past, and then skip like 20 years ahead, she's this badass warrior. How do we get there? Because I'm sure there are many women or many just underserved community. They've gone through a lot. They want to get to the badassery. They want to get to the strength, the warriors. And if we can see what happens in the middle, how the different choices, the little choices they made along the way to get where they are, I think that would be a really amazing movie.
I agree, and so much of what we saw, like you said, they just skip over, I think it's exactly 21 years, right? So, you see part of this childhood that we find out ends up being, a fabricated childhood, and then it just skips to right after, which movie? What was supposed to be 2016? Whatever it was, it's, right after Natasha Romanoff has violated the Sokovia Accords and is, on the run from the FBI or CIA, whoever William Hurt's character is in charge of. And you're like, wait a second. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that we missed. And as someone who is not a purist when it comes to watching the Marvel stuff, I haven't seen them all in order. So I have less context, I think, than probably most other people, where I was like, wait, is this happening before or after such and such? And I also know that the movie was supposed to come out a year ago, when it may have made a little bit more sense in the canon of Marvel. There was a little bit of jarringness with that, but I would also appreciate seeing did she ever have any normal fun memories? That'd be nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a little bit of glorifying of trauma in there. I did see that. Yeah, it would be really great to see her in just, having a human life, having human experiences instead of all these extreme pain and suffering and battles that she had to go through.
Since you got a chance to really kind of delve into some of her character traits, what did you determine about her astrologically?
This was easy. This is probably one of the easiest characters to determine, because she, at the very beginning of the movie, after she got to I think it was the airport where her supposed dad was there with Dreykov, and how they were going to capture her sister, and she grabbed somebody's gun and she was like, don't come closer, I will kill you, I will kill you. And Dreykov said to Alexei, which is the supposed dad, that one, she has fire in her. It literally told me what the element was. There's not really even an argument. Black Widow is pure fire. She has so much fire and earth, especially in her big 6, which is the sun, moon, rising, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. I did also see a definite lack of water. She's not super emotionally driven. She's just action-oriented, duty-oriented. So I want to talk a little bit about the different elements in astrology. In case some of you are not familiar, there are 4 different elements: fire, earth, air, and water. And each of these elements have certain signs that they rule. There's also the tarot suit that it rules, and then their different characteristics. So fire signs are usually Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. It is rules in tarot. The suited rules is wands. So fire signs are passionate, bold, charismatic. They're creative, charming, and confident. They're also very aggressive and selfish, and they're very action oriented. They have a lot of energy, and they can easily be a center of attention because they can command a room without a problem. They also have a tendency to be impulsive and have a short temper.
Yeah, she kind of seems like she could be embodying some Knight of Wands energy. Initially, I was thinking King of Wands as the person who's like the leader, who's passionate and bold, but the fact that she's continually on a mission and she's continually striving for something leads me to think she's more of a knight.
That's excellent. So earth signs are usually ruled by Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And in tarot, it is a suit of pentacles. Earth signs are grounded, loyal. They are good at accumulating wealth and possessions and materials. They tend to enjoy the material things in life, like food and wine and dessert and grounded earthly things. They're sensual, they're patient and practical. They are also stubborn, inflexible. It's usually their way or the highway, and they can be a bit overly decadent at times.
So what part of Natasha Romanoff's character do you think is earthly? You said that she had a little bit of earth in her too.
She could be a bit guarded and cynical, and those could be very earthly things. There's a quote that she said in Civil War that says, "Looking over your shoulder should be second nature." That's a very earthly thing to say. Very grounded, very practical. And then she also said in this particular movie, Black Widow, she said nothing lasts forever. And it's also another very earthly, like, it is what it is. She has accepted a lot of things in her life. She is feisty and she's very much a warrior. She has accepted a lot of the different parts about her life that led me to think that she's also very adaptable, and adaptability is earth sign thing. But I still think that she has more fire in her than earth. But earth could be somewhere in this, especially if her Mars is in Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, which means it does really well in Capricorn. So it's like commander of an army. That's the nature of the Mars in Capricorn. They're leaders. They're very practical. They know what to do. They're going to go for it. Very straightforward. Yes, they're very just action-oriented. They're the best people you want around if you want to get things done. So I want to just tap really quickly over air and water. I do think her sister Yelena has some air in there, possibly more water than Natasha. So air is usually Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius. The tarot suit is the suit of swords. Air is an element of intellect. They're sharp and highly rational. They have great social skills, great communicators. They think logically and rationally rather than emotionally. They could be aloof, cold. They can make kind of insensitive jokes at times because they're just, they can be sarcastic. They can absolutely ghost you and get over you very quickly. They are great at detaching.
Well, that seems like a good skill for these poor Black widows.
Exactly.
Of like, I had what I thought was a family and now I'm a child soldier.
Yes.
Like, I really have to detach from that emotionally.
Yes, absolutely. I think Yelena actually had to face that at the dinner table. And I think a little bit of her water came out because you can tell like she is still very in touch with her emotions. She did cry, but she just got back up and fought. I think she does have water in her, but I think the ruling signs of her is more earth and air. So water is usually Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, and the tarot is the suit of cups. Water signs are very sensitive, highly intuitive, and deep. They are very emotional. They're emotional creatures. They feel everything. They're very artistic and imaginative. They're loyal and compassionate. Sometimes because of their sensitivity, they are easily hurt and they take things a bit too personally. They can get to the delusional side a bit faster than the rest of the signs. They're moody, suspicious, and passive.
Yeah, I definitely see some of those qualities in Yelena for sure.
Mm-hmm. So going back to Black Widow, I think just throughout the whole movie, I can see that she's very duty-oriented. She's just task-oriented. She's like, these are the things that we gotta do. And she's very matter-of-fact about it. Very focused and protective. but she's also emotionally guarded, cynical. So that's how I kind of gathered that she's fire and earth dominant. And there's one quote that I found really, I kind of chuckled because she said, at least you know I'm a better shot when I'm pissed off. So this is a very indicative of Mars in Capricorn or Mars in Aries, because Mars do really well in Capricorn, Scorpio, or Aries, but I don't think she's a Mars in Scorpio person, because even though she has a bit of a vengeance, like it seemed like the storyline is her revenging, it's more about her releasing all these ladies of their mind control. So I don't think it's more about vengeance. She tends to be okay with letting go of the past and just move on to the next life, next identity that she takes over.
Right, and her mission kind of changed, right, throughout the movie as she found out more about what was actually going on with her sister. She kind of shifted to thinking only about herself and what she was going to do to get away, to realizing that this was bigger than her and that she had a duty to save these people.
Yeah, so I think most likely she has Mars in Aries, because everybody for herself kind of mentality is very strong with her. When she's pissed off, she's just more focused. And I want that quality, you know, because I tend to get flustered sometimes when I'm overcome with emotions.
I can echo that too.
Also, another thing that I thought might be indicative of her being fire is she said, speeches aren't really my thing. When you say something like that, that either means that your Mercury is in the 12th house, which is the hidden realm. You're not fond of speaking in front of people. You like to just speak in private. You like to be introspective. Or Mercury is in the signs that is opposite the sign it's ruled. So Mercury is ruled by Gemini and Virgo. So the opposite signs will be Sagittarius and Pisces. And in this case, Pisces are more dreamy and otherworldly and delusional, and that's definitely not Black Widow. So I'm willing to bet that she has some Mercury in Sagittarius or Mercury in her 12th house, which I think it's more accurate, because if she has her sun in the sign that I think, it won't make sense that her Mercury is in Sagittarius. The one thing that I thought was so brave of her was when she said, we have unfinished business, we have to go back to where it all started. Can you imagine going back to the place that just created all of your traumas and like the source of your life's misery?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this off air about Loki, which is another one that we're thinking about doing at some point. And so much of that is going like within and deep into like the void in this case of Loki to uncover everything that's there. And it's a very similar theme to what we're seeing in this, is just you've got to face that past in order to move on past it.
And I think it's such a matter of fact thing that not everybody has the courage to even say. We could be at different points in our journey with healing, but to be able to say, I'm going to face my worst fear because that's the only way out. That's what it is. I'm just going to do it.
It's definitely more courageous than many of us would attempt.
Yeah. Quite a dark place to return to. I figure that out of all the fire signs between Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries, I did think that she could be a Leo at one point because she's protective and she's a poser. You know, her sister kind of joked and called her a poser. I don't think it was on purpose, but I don't think she poses on purpose. That's just my opinion.
That's just directing.
Yeah, she was directed to do that. But I'm thinking out of everybody, Aries is a perfect placement for her personality, for her traits. So for those of you who don't know, Aries are usually people who were born between March 21st through April 19th. Now, sometimes you have to look at the particular year and the particular time of birth, because sometimes the sun switches signs in the middle of the day. Sometimes people who were born, some years it could be the 22nd instead of the 21st. So make sure you check the year and the time. But Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's the first fire sign also of the zodiac. It rules the head. So people who have Aries placements are bold and ambitious. They dive headfirst into the most challenging situations, like we just talked about, almost nonchalantly, like, well, it is what it is, that this is what we got to do. They're passionate, they're motivated, they're confident, they have relentless determination. I think relentless was one of the words they were describing the Black Widow sisters in the movie. They're uncomplicated and direct in their approach. I kind of chuckled when I put this down because I remember one time Yelena was, they were trying to get away and Yelena was asking Natasha, okay, you got a plan or shall I just stay duck and cover? And she said, my plan was to drive us away. That was just like...
That's the practical thing to do. We're getting away from here.
And she said, your plan sucks. But... yeah, it's just like she's like uncomplicated. She's like, it's what else are we gonna do? There's no nuances in there. We're just getting away. They like things quick and dirty. They think after they leap, which sometimes results in lessons learned the hard way. They're very independent, almost to the point of like every person for themselves. First and foremost, philosophy. Aries is ruled by Mars, very action oriented. They're always armed and ready for battle, so be careful if you get into confrontation with an Aries. They are ready to win. They are short-tempered, upbeat, positive. They can be very playful, enjoy living life to the fullest. If I were to guess between the major placements, I would say that Black Widow has Sun in Aries, Mercury in Aries, or that would mean like her rising Taurus. I could see that. I could see that, yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, sure, Mercury could be in the 12th house. She could be a Taurus rising. I could see that too because Taurus rising are very strong physically. They're healthy. They tend to be very into fitness and things like that. So I think it's actually pretty appropriate.
But obviously, I mean, you said that there's no actual birth date for her anywhere because when you hear her origin story, you realize that she was potentially just given up on the street from a very young age, and they don't even have a record of what her mother's name was. So it's kind of impossible to know, but you've done the sleuthing to sort of narrow it down to what makes the most sense for you. It's really fun.
Yeah, it has been really fun. I'm also thinking she might have a Capricorn moon because of her emotional processing is quite systematic. Seems like she has an earth moon, and with the duty-oriented personality, I think it's very likely that she's a Capricorn moon. So Capricorn is the last earth sign of the zodiac. It's ruled by Saturn. Saturn is a cold, strict, stoic, emotionally detached planet that governs restrictions. So pay attention to Saturn transits in your chart, or like where Saturn is in your chart, to know where the lessons you need to learn would be. So Saturn transits always teach us tough lessons, and Capricorn dominant individuals are no stranger to growing pains. Many were exposed to difficulties at an early age. Capricorn is a cardinal sign, is excellent at taking action and launching initiatives. They don't let anything distract them from getting ahead. They are also terrific leaders, very duty and work oriented. The bad thing, I guess, quote unquote bad thing here, is most Capricorn don't have a healthy work-life balance. They tend to be workaholics. Their idea of a day off is running errands and doing house chores. They also sometimes treat their friends and partners like assistants because of how task-focused they are. And because of that, they are often perceived as cold and unemotional, but that is far from the truth. They're still very emotional creatures. They just cope with social interactions and life duties in a different way. They are very hard on themselves because of the Saturn and restrictions, judgment that they feel internally constantly. They also should learn to connect with their loved ones on something other than work and task and what happens at the office.
Yeah, that sounds pretty appropriate for her too. Certain aspects of it for sure. I think that when you were talking about the Aries, that definitely resonated a little bit more deeply. Very, very cool way of taking the different characteristics and seeing how you can make the zodiac work for them. So you had talked about not just this as a character analysis, but you also wanted to talk about trust because that was a big theme of the movie. So delve a little bit into that.
Yes, absolutely. So we had originally wanted to watch this movie together so we can do this particular episode. So I had my eyes open, my ears open, mind open. I wanted to look for a theme that I felt could be important to talk about. And one of the things that I found to be one of her challenges was trust. Even the first time she saw her sister again after years, they were pointing guns at each other, and I was like, are they joking? Because to me, that's such a foreign concept. Like, why would you have to point guns at each other? literally she can't trust anyone, even, I guess, family.
She did seem to trust her contact Mason. That seemed to be the only person who she really was able to like call in between these different things to get her the different supplies and getaway vehicle that she needed. But other than that, and then I guess in the Avengers movie, she developed more trusting relationships with the various Avengers. But maybe because of her lack of parental structure and family structure, that is just, that wasn't ever modeled for her, so she wasn't ever able to embody that as an adult. Because, it's very, very foreign to me also to point a gun at someone that, you should be able to trust and love.
Yeah, it sort of was taught to us early on that family is supposed to be a safe place. It's supposed to be where you can let down your guard, relax, and be yourself around. That doesn't always happen for everybody. But that's just something that we were taught.
And she does mention that at one point. She says that she found a home with the Avengers because they treated her like family. So that felt more real and more supportive than what she had experienced as a child.
Yes, that was one of the last sentences that she had said before she jumped over the cliff. She found a family in the Avengers that she didn't find anywhere else. It was just her living. I think this one particular quote was right before the last battles. I've lived a lot of lives, but I'm done running from my past. That was sort of like a pivoting moment for her in deciding what she's going to do next with her life after seeing her family again and just facing this new reality, running from whoever is chasing her. Just sort of a side note, I was reading Wired for Love this morning, and it was talking about the different attachment styles and go through the anchor, the island, and the waves. Are you familiar with those?
I'm not.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a really brief summary of what they are. So anchors tend to be quite secure in the relationships. They are very comfortable being together or apart. They have a lot more trust, and they can easily find happiness in relationships. Island are people who tend to move away from the partnership when things get hard, because most of the time they are used to being independent and alone, and this is usually because them having been taken care of as children but not having the emotional side of it, not having their emotional care or emotional attachment. So for them, they idealize their childhood because they were fed, they were sheltered, and they got to go to school, and those are the things that they count as love. And so moving forward, when they're in relationships, they tend to be the same way. The way they express love is through feeding somebody or giving somebody the means to survive, and not so much the emotional connection. Waves are complete opposite. They need emotional security all the time. You've seen waves crashing the shore and then pulling back to the ocean. They have this duality to their approach, which is they would constantly ask for security, ask for validation and reassurance, and then immediately guard themselves from being hurt by pulling away or getting angry before they get rejected, because they are preparing themselves for being rejected. So I was just going through these quotes, and I was like, this one in particular, when she said, I've lived a lot of lives, but I'm done running from my past. I felt that was very island attachment style. She just move on to a different things. She doesn't want to talk about the past. She doesn't want to deal with any sort of like digging up past things until she decided that she had to. And then she's like, with her airy self, we have unfinished business. We have to go back to where it all started. So yeah, I think that could be a nice segue into our trust and betrayal kind of conversation. Usually when it comes to trust, I always go back to Brené Brown's The Elements of Trust, Anatomy of Trust. The acronym is BRAVING. Are you familiar with it?
I am, and I actually independently looked this up too.
Oh!
And I will refer to it in the tarot spread, so give us an overview.
Oh, how cool. Okay. BRAVING acronyms. The B stands for boundaries. So that means, boundaries are respected and boundaries are clear. And when it's not clear or when it's not respected, then there are consequences. Going back to how do you use this towards trust? You can trust someone more easily when they have solid boundaries. When they have wavering boundaries, you sort of feel uneasy because, okay, where's this person's line? What are the things that they're willing to do? And what are the things that they're not willing to do? Boundaries is one of the biggest things when it comes to trust. The R stands for reliability. You do what you say you'll do. At work, this means staying aware of your competencies and limitations so you don't overpromise. Overpromising is another thing that a lot of people do because they're trying to be nice, they're trying to be accommodating, and actually that would make it harder for people to trust because you don't follow through with things and people are not going to feel like they can ask you to do anything ever again. Reliability is being able to deliver on commitments and balance competing priorities. So it's okay to say no when it reaches your limits.
Well, that's also boundaries.
That is also boundaries. Yes, they do go hand in hand. The A stands for accountability. This is one of the ones that I find hardest to find in people that I deal with. So accountability is you own your own mistakes. You apologize and you make amends. I feel like saying sorry and admitting fault is, to some people, could be very vulnerable because they're not comfortable with imperfection and flaws and doing it wrong because growing up, we are just, some of us were punished for doing something wrong, even though we're still learning. So that's unfortunate, but that's something that when somebody can own up their mistakes, you feel a little more easy.
Right, as long as it's genuine. I mean, that's the other big thing is that people can just say something and there's zero feeling or sincerity behind it. And you're like, can I trust this person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing. There's so many layers. This is why we all have trust issues because you can play around with this. If the person is really skilled, they can make other people trust them. But I think I hope eventually somebody would call them out because
you can't grow if you don't ever let yourself be held accountable for anything.
Absolutely.
You'll never grow out of whatever it is that you're doing that is messing with people.
Yeah, absolutely. The V stands for vault. So you don't share information and experiences that are not yours to share. I need to know that my confidences are kept and you're not sharing with me any information about other people that should be confidential. I will include a link to this particular sheet so everybody can refer back to. I love the work she's done with this anatomy of trust and it's helped me so much. But yes, going back to vault, like if they are gossiping things to you, most likely you're not going to feel comfortable sharing something personal with them because there's likely a chance they would gossip yours to someone else. I stands for integrity. You choose courage over comfort. You choose what is right over what's fun, fast, or easy. You choose to practice your values rather than simply professing them. This is something I'm learning. It's always easier to choose comfort over courage. What's easy, what's fast. But at the end of the day, you know what was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and you can sit with that, right? When you do something that's against your own integrity, you get that icky feeling, and then you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. And I think people just get to a point where they're like, I should probably do what's more in alignment with my values as opposed to what is just fast and easy or comfortable. I don't think that there's any growth if there's no courage,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's also important to remember that integrity, I'm not talking about doing wrong towards other people. It could simply be not speaking up for yourself. The comfortable thing is to not confront, but sometimes it's important to choose courage over comfort because then you can preserve your integrity. And your integrity has a really strong tie to your worth, your sense of worth. So at the end of the day, when you preserve your integrity, even if it was just like 8 seconds, I think this is what Brene said, 8 seconds of discomfort for you to say no to somebody, you can sleep at night. You can feel good about yourself. You can feel good about your stand and your space. And I think that's way more important than to avoid confrontation, because you are going to end up resenting that person for a very long time. The N stands for non-judgment. I can ask for what I need and you can ask for what you need. We can talk about how we feel without judgment. So there are times when you have different needs and different opinions, and to hold that space for people to exist around you will open up the ability to trust, because you open up this channel of like, okay, I feel like I can be myself around you. I can have my integrity around you. I can be accountable around you. I can make mistakes and you will not ridicule me for it. I feel comfortable being human around you. And I think that's very valuable, and it's very important to keep in mind. If there's somebody that you feel judged around, most likely you are not going to feel like you can trust them.
Right, because you're not able to be honest with them because you're worried about that judgment. Yeah, it's not a good place to be in.
Yeah. And the G stands for generosity. You extend the most generous interpretation possible to the intentions, words, and actions of others. This is sort of, it goes hand in hand with non-judgment. But with generosity, it takes it a step further, and you give people the benefit of the doubt. This is where cynicism isn't going to help with trust. I feel like it's sort of a given. I feel like at the end of the day, sometimes it's easy, especially with the media and the other influences around us, to be suspicious of everybody's intentions and agendas. But at the end of the day, as long as you have all the other things, and especially when you hold and cherish your boundaries, I think generosity is the final cherry on top to have that, build that trust within yourself and others.
Well, that is a perfect segue into my spread, and I'm actually using Oracle cards today. This is my first Oracle deck. It is the Moonology deck, which Alice also owns and really appreciates, and I have loved it. I've only had it for less than a week, and I pulled cards from it every single day, and I've really appreciated the messaging that comes through. I was doing a lot of thoughts also about boundaries and how we tend to hold people to what we believe are social norms. And when those social norms are violated or those boundaries are violated, we lose what's called our naive trust. And naive, it comes from French, which traces back to Latin and can mean natural or native. So we're born with this innate sense of trust that can erode over time. And obviously, based on certain levels of trauma and different types of relationships we've had, we may never quite get back to that naive trust, but it doesn't mean that the loss of that should be transferred to a lack of trust in groups of people or in leadership, or it means that we should turn away from people or retreat back into ourselves. The building up of trust is a slow process, and with all of the acronym or the stages of the acronym that Alice just mentioned for breathing, it can take a little while to get back to a place of trust if you've lost that with someone. But also, if you're transferring your one experience or maybe repeated experiences from a childhood to a whole group of people or to people in leadership positions, then you're also cutting off potential relationships with these people. So it's just important to think about trust as an opportunity to develop intimacy with others, and that there are different levels of trust that you'll engage in with different people. So this spread is 4 cards, and it answers 4 different questions. The first is, how do we develop trust in ourselves? As we know, we always have to look within first before we look outside for that trust. So how do we cultivate trust to ourselves and keep ourselves accountable and reliable and integral to ourselves first? The second question is, in what ways can we deepen our trust in the universe or God or source or divine, whatever word works for you there, because that is such a prevailing influence on what we do, and not trusting in the goodness of the way your path is going in the universe can obviously lead to breakdowns in trust in other other ways. The third question is, how do we repair trust in others? So if you've undergone different situations in which trust has eroded, how can we repair that? And the last card is just one to consider regarding trust. So the oracle card that came out to answer the question, how do we develop trust in ourselves, was the new moon in Libra, which states a new romantic cycle begins. And I think a lot of this speaks to sort of self-regulating, so being able to keep promises to yourself so you know that you are reliable and you can kind of balance out that past of maybe mistrustful situations you've been in. So if you can prove to yourself that you are dependable and that you have your own best interests at heart, then you'll be able to keep those promises and rebuild that trust within. This card can also represent a restart, saying that that's possible for anything and everything in order to regain that equilibrium. In what ways can we deepen trust in the universe? The immutable moon came out, which states nothing is yet set in stone, and this just feels so apt for how to deepen our trust in the universe, is that we may feel like the universe is like fucking with us or playing jokes on us a lot, but that's the eternal reminder that everything is in flux and that we really need to trust in the unknown because it's constantly shape-shifting. So a mantra that can help us answer this question can be, I trust that the best will unfold for me. You might know it if you have developed that deep intuition, but even if you haven't, there is a level of trust in the fact that you will always be provided for that I think we all have. We just need to kind of dust off every once in a while. And this is also an opportunity to visualize and affirm what you want because there's always room for change because things are constantly in flux. How do we repair trust in others? The card that came out was the full moon in Taurus, which says your dreams need a practical plan. And this is where I really thought of that braving analogy, which is that you have these steps you need to go through. You can't really blindly throw your trust at anyone. And you also can't believe that everyone's out to get you. So you have to kind of find that middle ground, but do it in a way that is appropriate and discerning as opposed to just like having faith in something based on nothing. If you've been in a situation where you've lost trust among a partner or a friend or a family member, those incremental steps need to be in place. You can't just suddenly get back to a good place. And the medicine of this card is to use the law of attraction to your benefit. So if you're focused on things that have always been or never been or don't believe that people can shift or change, then you're going to attract more thoughts like that. But if you use that generosity from the Braving acronym and you believe in other people's ability to change and to become reliable and accountable and be integral, then you can attract more of that into your relationships. But you really need to allow time to show the results of your actions. This isn't an overnight, quick fix. And then the card to consider regarding trust was the new moon in Sagittarius, which states luck is on your side. And I sometimes have a hard time personally with the word luck because I think it denotes that, some people are inherently like deserving of things and other people aren't. So I would like to interchange it with the word fortune. So fortune is on your side, meaning things can come to you if you believe in them. So this is again speaking to the law of attraction. And this can be a rekindling after a low point. So if there has been a breach in trust, starting slowly by rekindling and building that up. It could be an invitation to explore ideas with others or get grounded in your own philosophy. So again, checking in first before speaking outwards, but really allowing yourself to widen your worldview and consider a gratitude practice so that way you can invite more of what makes you happy in. And I really felt like this card tied in very beautifully with the other three, with the idea of being optimistic. There's changeable energy. So if we expect the best, then the law of attraction states we will get more of the best.
Wonderful. Do you have anything else to add about trust after betrayal? Things to consider? Is it possible to have trust after betrayal? How do we move forward with ourselves and with others, after feeling betrayed?
Yeah, it is possible. It also is completely up to someone to decide whether or not it's going to happen. If the person, with whom the trust has been breached has shown those qualities of braving, then you can hopefully believe that you'll get back to a place of trust. It won't be the same place, but it can be a new place of trust. I know that some relationships can be damaged beyond repair, right? And if you have never seen accountability from someone or never seen them hold your vault sacred, then it's pretty unlikely that's going to change. So if trust has been ruptured, it is completely within the person's power to be able to say, this is just not worth working on anymore, and to set the boundary of, I will no longer engage with this person.
I feel like this was a good example of what you said earlier about fake accountability when, and especially in abusive relationships, they are going to say whatever it takes for you to take them back. And you have to first know and set your boundaries and keep it, because that's the one thing that you have that they can't take away. And it's really up to you to eventually get to a place that you can trust them again, maybe in a different degree, different level. But the rest of the qualities won't work unless you have that boundary and hold that boundary and have consequences in place and stick to it.
Right. And the other thing I was going to say was that forgiveness is an option, but it can also be really hard to let go when you feel like you've been wronged. And to be totally clear, forgiveness is not excusing the other person, and it's not saying like it's okay that you did that. It's just a choice, a conscious choice to say, I will no longer hold on to this as something that's festering within me.
Do you think it's possible for somebody to trust someone else without trusting themselves first?
I'm sure people do it, and I'm sure that causes some really turbulent relationships, because if you're not accountable to yourself or reliable to yourself, then how can you be to another person? And I know that there are so many trauma bonds out there where people just don't know any other way, and they've never actually tapped into themselves and kept promises to themselves and shown that they are worthy of follow through. Because how we talk to ourselves, right? Like the minute you start deviating from, let's say, like a workout plan, you're like, oh, I always do this, and like I never follow through. And it's like, but who has control over that? It's you. You have 100% control over it. And if you show yourself every time that you're not responsible for it and accountable to it, then that's going to happen every single time. But every time you get the choice to reinvent how you respond in that situation, and that builds self-trust, which then I think just trickles outward. It's the ripple effect that if you do it for yourself, then it's going to ripple out to other people.
Yeah, I think it's very important to build that trust within yourself first, because we talk a lot about trusting your intuition. And if you don't have that trust within yourself with just your own actions, your own decision-making process, then you are not going to be able to have a solid, secure, trusting relationship with other people.
What are you grateful for today, Alice?
I'm grateful for so many things. I'm grateful for the oracles. I'm grateful for this in-person meeting. I'm grateful for the efforts that we show each other. I'm grateful for all the lessons that I get to learn and the people that I have been able to put my trust in.
Yeah, I 100% echo that. I think having been in friendships and relationships and work situations where I haven't had trust, it makes me so much more appreciative of the people that I can trust to just say, hey, I need some support in this, or, I'm having a bad day. Can we talk about this? Or conversely, like, let's celebrate something, or, let's uplift each other. It's really, really important to find those people. And so I'm very, very grateful for those people. And the trust that I have grown to expect is helpful for me, because it means that I don't put up with anything less than that. And that means that I have fewer people in my life who exude that sort of toxic trustlessness. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. That has made me a happier person overall, is realizing that I can be surrounded by fewer people who I trust deeply, as opposed to many, 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 many people who I don't know if I can, follow through with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this goes back to when we talked about integrity. It's going to be a little bit of effort at the beginning for you to choose courage over comfort, but the reward is great because now you can reap what you sow and you can build more healthy relationships. That's going to uplift you. That's going to push you in the right direction, challenge you in the right places.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for listening today, and we will be back next week with episode 11.
Bye.
This week's tangible takeaways. We are born with a naive trust, something deep within that relies on others to care for us from our earliest days. There are different levels of trust, and it is necessary to assess whether another person is worthy of your trust based on certain criteria, such as the braving acronym presented by Brené Brown. Intimacy develops when we reveal parts of ourselves to others who treat them with reverence, safety, and non-judgment. If we find ourselves surrounded by those who do not hold our vulnerability with care, it's time to reassess our boundaries, particularly with ourselves. Consider these questions. Do you keep promises to yourself daily? Do you believe that the universe is on your side? Are your relationships safe spaces to make mistakes and grow? If you answered no to any, see how you can shift your thinking, your actions, and your relationships to achieve all yeses. Once trust is lost, it can mean a relationship needs to end unless both parties work consistently on the long path of rebuilding. Before throwing caution to the wind or giving up on intimacy, take time to cultivate trust within, then at home, then at work, then among friends and neighbors, so you are surrounded by a network of caring individuals.
Everyone we meet usually exudes a dominant elemental energy, such as fire, air, earth, or water, or a specific combination of them. This is usually the fastest way to help identify a person's primary zodiac signs or significant placements. For example, someone who's mostly positive and energetic could have a fire-dominant chart. The way to their heart is to ask them about themselves and give them the space to display their energy level. A person who is more talkative and intellectually driven could have an air-dominant chart. The way to their heart is to entertain thought experiments and conspiracy theories with them, or stimulate their mind with new perspectives. Water-dominant individuals tend to be intuitive, sensitive, and shy. You can win them over by holding space for their emotional expressions and exchanging vulnerable truths with them. Last but not least, you can identify an earth-dominant person by the practical, level-headed, and sometimes sobering energy they bring. These individuals love earthly substance and sensory things, such as good food, quality wine, and comfy shoes. There is always more to a person than what they display on the outside, so as always, don't judge a book by its cover. People are more lovable up close. The weekly forecast for Monday, July 19th through Sunday, July 25th. Monday, July 19th. There will be deep, powerful, and intense energies today that might feel overwhelming and uncomfortable. We will feel things profoundly, be in tune with creativity and spirituality, and be able to express ourselves with ease. There will be opportunities for transformation as well. However, watch out for emotionally aggressive interactions, overindulgence, and monopolizing the spotlight. In the evening, expect a collective mood to be lifted, though still overflowing and excessive. Tuesday, July 20th. This is a great day for brainstorming original and innovative ideas for your long-term projects. We are open to new beliefs and seeing things from different angles. There might be some misalignment between what needs to be done and what can be done, but don't feel like you have to choose one or the other. There are always ways to navigate mismatching concepts to make them work if you're willing to look outside the box and abandon outdated ways of thinking. Wednesday, July 21st. Early in the day, we might experience some confusion and fatigue, perhaps sleeping in later than usual. However, energy will pick up quickly and will feel more charismatic, daring, attractive, passionate as the day progresses. We may also feel more assertive interactions and do more things with conviction. Later in the evening, expect harmony, tenderness, affection, and adoration to join the mix. In the next month or so, expect love and unity to be expressed more via quiet actions and connections to be found through more acts of service. Thursday, July 22nd. Energies will be delightfully heightened today. We can count on pleasant surprises, earthly abundance, breakthroughs, and unexpected rendezvous. As a collective, we will be more amiable, playful, and excited to connect with one another. There is a good chance we will be talking over each other, but only because we will be enthusiastic to be seen and to be helpful. Make sure to remember that if someone isn't taking your advice, let it go. It is not your job to live their life. Friday, July 23rd. This will probably be one of the most emotional full moons of the year, so don't be surprised if the majority of people will be more emotionally driven in their words and actions under this lunation. There will be deep and intense transformations happening that will massively shift the dynamic of your relationships with the areas of life or astrological houses where Aquarius and Leo reside. There will also be push and pull between logic and emotions, and opportunities to tune into spirituality to clear up any perplexity and emotional pain in the full moon carries. Saturday, July 24th. We will have to take commitment and responsibilities more seriously today, which will cause some discomfort and irritability when it comes to feeling the urge to break out and seek a different path. This will be a great day for creativity and spirituality to aid logic and reason in our pursuits of discovery and progress. Allow the space for outside-the-box thinking and originality, but make sure to finish the non-negotiables of the day first. Sunday, July 25th. This might be a more combative and quarrelsome day, with tensions between logic and power and between feelings and actions coexisting. It might be hard to rationalize the differences in beliefs, concepts, and information processing and come to an agreement when we still struggle with deep, intense, and overpowering emotions. There might also be upsetting news early on in the day. Surround yourself with nature and silence if possible, and do not entertain any paranoia that crosses your mind. Let the thoughts simply pass through you and ground yourself with things that soothe your senses. Expect the collective mood to be softened and lifted later in the evening. If you're interested in more daily transit interpretations, guidance on your own astrological chart, getting advice on relationships based on astrology, and more, you can find me on Instagram at truth.told.early. Thank you for listening.
You can reach us at celestialsmalltalk@gmail.com, on Instagram at celestialsmalltalk, and on YouTube under Celestial Smalltalk. Please listen, like, review, share, grow, learn, and love.